took a little time off, but we're back now. I'm your host, Keita.
I'm your host, Evan.
I'm your host, Jasmine.
I'm your host, Jermaine.
And today our special guests are my little brother and his wife, Nathaniel and Tabitha.
Thank you. So, how we doing?
Woo!
Where we starting at?
Y'all want to start with
you
something?
know where we start. No.
Oh, yeah, so we're going to kick it to Nathaniel.
That's what we are. No.
Yeah.
See, he missed that off. He missed that off camp. He missed that off camp.
Excuse me.
We already talked about it.
So y'all supposed to pray 30 minutes?
No.
We got the third lead.
All right. God, we thank you just for the opportunity we have to come together as family. We thank you for this privilege and honor it is to be able to debrief and discuss things such as marriage and parenthood. God, pray, God, that we're able to communicate effectively and efficiently. May this be a blessing not only to us as we share, but to every ear who hears as well. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 All right, so y'all.
Good job. Abbreviated. It's the shortest praise ever.
Yeah, I like it.
Effectively and efficiently.
He talking about himself. You know he like to talk.
Right.
I love it.
So y'all want to start with updates?
Updates.
Let's start with y'all with updates.
Woo! So our biggest update is we are expecting little boy in November. So basically the whole time we were like shooting like previous episodes, I was pregnant but had no idea. But now we're here, so we're happy and we're excited.
Justice Alejandro.
Hey!
I know, I like that. When my kids came over with that. So Alejandro Williams, and this is Tia and her cousin. So
Yes. Hibiscus tea.
yeah.
Got a real
This smacking too. It's good.
Thank you.
smacking.
So let's see, what kind of updates did we have? We had two graduates. We had a high school graduate and a middle school graduate. So
Yeah.
we got the babies growing up. We had one going into the 5th grade. What else we got going on?
I don't know. Look, we got these hats now.
Yes, our hats.
No,
Merch.
podcast hats. We got some merch looking a little bit more official now. We got the t-shirts
Shirt.
looking uniform now. But other than that, though, like I don't know. It's been so much
been a
going
lot.
on. Like,
Life been life in it.
let's just get into this.
There you go.
Yeah, let's just get into this conversation because as we speak, I'm pretty sure things will pop back into my mind. So, but first we're going to start off with how you guys met.
Yeah.
No.
Tell us your story.
What's the
And
story?
as I always say, you know, the husband's story is never the wife's story. It's always the part that's different.
You heard that laugh when y'all said how they met. He died laughing.
Well, see, he usually tells the story, and then I like jump in to remind him of certain details. So I think that's the lane that we're gonna kind of.
Oh, that's so
Yes.
interesting.
Last time we had a smoke, I was the one that told the story.
That's because
So-
you said you wanted it short.
Yes, but this is
They gave me an hour.
they wanted the full story.
Lord.
No, he's a bit long-winded. He loves to
Yeah.
talk, but that's okay. I'm gonna let you tell
Maybe
people
not
out.
the only one, bro.
There we go. I'm in good
It's a
company.
good
That's
thing.
what she said.
It's a good thing. He is the extrovert of our relationship. I'm an introvert,
I've
so
been made to feel bad. Though.
we compliment.
Oh, God. Yeah.
But
Not joking. I'm
let's
just,
get it.
no, we
Yeah.
so where you want to start? I went to technically you went to school first,
Yeah.
because you're older. But no, I'm joking.
See, he's starting already.
Messing up.
He's starting already.
So
I am 10 months older than him.
Yeah.
10 months.
Oh, my
But
God.
I am the cougar apparently in all the things. Lord, 10 months. By 10 months. So I'm 35. He's 34. And I went to. Very young. Yes.
Yeah.
We went to. I went to James Madison University, and you went to.
Bridgewater College, the Bridgewater College.
Oh my gosh! In Bridgewater, Virginia. I was in Harrisonburg, Virginia, and we met in the same ministry. So.
Yes. And yeah, so technically I met Tab before she actually knew who I was.
That is true.
My freshman year of college, we were a part of a camp. Well, I was a part of the campus ministry at that point called DURAG.
DURAG.
Which stands for Divine Unity Righteously Applying God Ministries. So literally,
Nice.
DURAG.
Okay.
And so while we were in that ministry, her dad, who was a pastor at the time, he had invited us down because she was also a part of a gospel choir that was at James Madison.
Doo-wop situation.
So we used to collaborate and do stuff together. And so we went down. But she was actually dating somebody at the
I
time.
was in a whole it wasn't even a full-on relationship, it was a situationship. I was still working some things out with the Lord.
Situation.
It was a whole situation. You know how you think someone's the one, you're like, but I really want him to be the one. But he's also not a Christian, but he's also not trying to do right by me. But I really want him to be the one. It was so wrong, and thank the Lord that it was wrong. Amen. Go ahead.
Day one-ish.
Since day one.
No, so yeah, went down there. Actually met her and her parents. I went to her family's house while we were there, and everything, and it was amazing. And
There were like 50 college students. So it wasn't like it was like 10 of us, and I didn't know it.
Right,
Like there was like a bunch of college students.
And I was short, so I was way out of her league.
I had preferences.
You know, yeah. She was treating me like I was short too.
I didn't
Hey,
know.
I'm joking. But no, and so yeah, that was kind of like my first experience ever meeting her. But then I got kicked out of school in 2007, and so I moved actually down to Miami. While I was there,
It wasn't
Tab
until
actually got
got
involved.
saved.
Okay.
Because
What's one way to put it?
you know,
I
before
don't know you out
2008,
there like that.
I had grown up Christian. My father was a
I've
pastor.
always been saved.
Yo.
He had, you know what? You probably more saved than me, yes, at the time. But yes,
I
I
said at the time, I'm a pastor. You can't talk like that.
Hey.
if anybody knows Nate, okay, you are
Hey.
super saved, super Christian, but you are also yourself, which I appreciate. So
Good way.
you know,
Good,
listen,
good.
I cover well. So we had in 2000, before 2008, I was a college student. First 2 years of my college experience, I was just living the life that I thought I wanted to live. I was definitely running from the Lord. Didn't really think about the whole idea that, you know, Christian relationship with the Lord is based in relationship and not religiousness and not all of that stuff. And so I was running. I lived under a microscope. My dad was a pastor and also in the military, so like super strict.
Super. That's
Can't do
double
nothing.
strict.
Yeah, it was a double whammy.
Legalistic.
Yes, it was all of that. And so to me, I was like, oh, I'm out. I'll come back around after I graduate. And so first 2 years, I was partying, drinking, all of that stuff. And then it wasn't until he was gone and then finally like my spring semester, 08, so like my 21st birthday, when I was like, you know, I think I want to give this thing a try. And that relationship that I was talking about is the reason, because I was just like, I don't like him, I don't like this, and I want something different. And the Lord was pursuing me the whole time. So yeah, kind of
Praise
ended
the
up
Lord.
I love that.
Yeah, I love this story.
Yeah.
That was actually a question that I was going to ask. Like, when did you actively start seeking your own relationship with him?
Yeah,
You said 21.
Yeah.
21 was like the real thing.
And I would be going to like Bible studies and then going to party on Friday night, singing in church on Sunday, like that whole gamut. Because growing up, I didn't know I didn't know that fully submitting to the Lord was a commitment in the sense of like, you don't necessarily have a desire to do all those things. I thought that all those things would be fulfilling because that's just what I saw.
Yeah.
So I didn't know any different. And so in doing all that, I didn't really feel the conviction of, wow, the Lord loves me and pursues me.
Keyword is conviction.
Yeah,
Keyword is
yeah.
conviction.
When I fully understand what a relationship with the Lord looked like and how different it is in retrospect of what I was living before, and it changed my life forever. And I didn't want to do the other stuff. It wasn't fulfilling. I wasn't getting anything out of it. And so, yeah, once I finally sold out 08, that spring, I was pretty much done. I was like, Lord, if this is what you want, you got it. You got it.
That's when you met him, or
I met him in the fall, officially. I remember. I met him that fall. Yes.
So in my time away, so when I was actively involved in the ministry in my freshman year, I was doing everything. I actually did not party. That was not a scene that
So you
I
still
felt
safe.
comfortable in. But also, I came in with the mindset that I had the desire to party and stuff like that. My first day going to the campus, I literally met the resident director, who is now Pastor Chris Johnson of our church, who was also leading the campus ministry. So, and that evening when I saw him, I came down the stairs and I went to Mount St. Joe here in Baltimore, and so I'm used to wearing shirt, tie, button up, all that stuff. So I ain't really had sweatpants.
Yeah.
So when I came down the steps, I had on like khakis and a polo shirt, and he was like, "You a preacher kid, ain't you?" And I was like, "Well, technically no, like I'm not a preacher's kid, but I did grow up in the church." And so, you know what I mean? And so that was pretty much it. And from that point forward, I started hanging out with them, and then they made it more enjoyable to actually me being myself, not having to do other things, but also be a Christian. And so that, I mean, and I can list out a bunch of different people that were instrumental in that. But yeah, like they legitimately, it was like we didn't take the party out of the person, we just changed the group that they were partying with. And so that made it really, really exciting. So yeah, but I was still me, and so I still love women. And so my freshman year, I did start dating someone. It was not a great relationship. Got out of the relationship simply because I got kicked out of school, and she was like, I don't do long distance. So I was like, all right, cool. So I went down there and I was like, I'm not gonna find it.
That's the smoothest break.
All
Alright, cool. Next.
And so I legitimately, man, I like told my mom, I was like, listen, I'm not gonna, date anybody else while I'm down here because I didn't plan on staying in Florida long. And so ended up coming back up to Bridgewater. During the summer when I came back, Chris at the time, he still wasn't a pastor. He came to me and he was like, listen, there's a lot of young ladies that just joined the ministry. Just relax for a little while. You ain't got to dive into a relationship in the beginning or anything like that. And so I was like, right. So I was like, okay, cool, that's cool with me. You know what I mean? We did our first ministry trip.
Anyway, y'all,
In the
I ain't know
fall,
about this till
in
later.
September of 2008. Now I got back in September of 2008, and then by the end of September, we did a ministry trip to Northern Virginia. And we used to do these overnight stays and things like that. And one of the times we were staying at like a hotel, all of us together. And all the real students was down in the lobby actually trying to do schoolwork. And then you had like people who was just going to class, like myself. I was down there and I was more so the life of the party. I'm trying to have fun. Okay? Y'all out here trying to do schoolwork. We only about 2 weeks in. We don't need to really do that much work. So I ended up talking with there's a bunch of ladies that was there, a bunch of guys that was there, but I'm a ladies person, so I was interacting with a bunch of ladies. And she was happening to be down there, so I'm talking with her and interacting with her, and she was actually like, giving me some smiles and some nods and things like that. Like a little Teletubby. That's
Hey, dog. Oh, we gonna have so many drops for this. We're gonna have so many clips from this.
And so, but while we were there, I don't even know, but like I ended up saying something about like getting food.
Yeah, well, okay, so backtrack a little bit. We had there for ministry trips and stuff like that. The college ministry that we were part of, like they did like we did plays, we did worship, we did a lot of things and going to youth things and stuff like that at churches specifically. So we'd bring our whole crew and like take over their church for like a whole weekend kind of thing. And so when I was there though, like I knew how to dress, but it was just the thing of like, oh, you just wear heels. I'm grown now, I still want to wear heels. I mean, I'm Christian, but I still want to. So I had on heels, and you wear heels a long time, and then y'all remember Deb, like them cheap that store.
Yes.
So I used to wear heels like that, and then my ankles had gotten swollen or something like that.
Ankles and calves out. I said, well, that's how they got David.
I was saved. I was trying to be cute and saved.
So we're sitting there, we're interacting, and like we were like, yeah, we're gonna get food, and I was like, all right, cool, and I was like, well, I'll get a couple people something to eat, you know what I mean? And now it's kind of like, I don't know if I'll get you something to eat, because I was more so flirting with her, and so, but order food. Now, what had happened in order for me to get people something to eat though, I had to call my mom and got her to wire me some money.
I ain't
So
know
technically,
nothing
I ain't had no job, so I'm out here offering stuff that I ain't really had, but by faith, we were
That's
That's a lot of things right there. That's so much time. Like how much time was in between you offering and having that?
I didn't know that.
She got take back.
You got to talk about wiring money. That means you had to go somewhere and pick it up after she sent it.
What would happen was most of the time when we would get ready to go on a trip, I would tell my mom or my grandmother, and I'd be like, hey, I'm about to go here or whatever, and my grandma and my mom would be like, well, I don't want you out there with no money. So they would send me something. And I'd be like, they'd be like, I'm going to just deposit it in your bank. And so they would do that. And so I would have it. I would get it on Friday, but then I wouldn't really like spend money unless I felt the need to like spend it on someone or something. And so because I had extra, I was like, well, next week I'll get some more money from him. So let me just go ahead and splurge
Listen,
on
I'm
this
broke. You ain't
weekend.
gonna turn down no meal
Yeah.
as a college student. You ain't gonna turn down
You know what I mean? And so that's what he did, man. So we sitting there.
Oh my
And
I know that, man.
the thing is that like so her feet were out, her ankle was swollen,
It was.
and so I thought I had the gift of healing.
Oh my god.
Lies.
So I grabbed
Say, but you still a young man. That's what that is.
Prophelize.
I wasn't even gonna say it, but I knew it was coming.
He saved, but you still a young man. You still, it's okay.
So I ended up grabbing her ankle.
He did.
Trying to help you.
Yeah, I ended up grabbing her ankle. I was like, oh, your ankle's a little swollen. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, okay. Okay. Y'all Martin fan?
Yes.
Y'all seen the TV show Martin? There's an episode that we used to look at all the time where they were like abstaining from having sex together, right? And she had the blue dress on, and she put her leg up on the joint, and she was just like, "You want to go ahead and massage my calf muscle?" And he was like, "Huh? What you saying?" So that's kind of like that.
Listen,
I wasn't drooling. I don't want y'all to think I was drooling all over her leg or nothing like that.
He wasn't doing anything inappropriate. It was just a funny moment that we like to look back on.
Yeah.
So you won't. It didn't go beyond that.
But so then we didn't actually exchange like cell phone numbers or nothing.
AIM was the thing back in the day.
Yeah, we had AOL
Instant
Instant
Messenger.
Y'all tell the age right now.
Listen, I'm not old, but you know, it's pretty
So-
dangerous out there now.
So like a week later.
The internet go out when somebody gets a phone call. Hang up the phone. I'm on the internet. Hang up the phone.
Dial up.
That's back when Ask G's was Google.
There you go.
Ask G's.
Exactly. Ask.com.
God.
So we ended up like I don't know, like a week later. I was in the computer lab, which I never really was ever in the computer lab doing work. But I was in there and she messaged me. And so we're talking back and forth.
And I like them, so I won't take it on
I
that.
had my buddy with me, and he was like doing something. Like again, I always surrounded myself with people who were doing work. I just didn't do work. So I was in there watching movies and stuff like that. And so she messaged me, and so I was like, we were talking back and forth. And then in there, all of a sudden, she messaged, and she was like, "Are you flirting with me, Mr. Parent?" And so I was like, "Oh no." I can answer that right now. No, I ain't nobody flirting. It's just my personality. You know, hit send. And so we talked a little bit more, and then next thing I know, she goes, I'm gonna ask again, are you flirting with me, Mr. Parent?
Come on.
So then I turned to my boy.
I'm just a straight shooter. I
turned to my boy, and I was like, hey, bro, what you say to this? He was like, well, are you flirting with her? I was like, well, I ain't trying to. He was like, well, you need to let her know that you're not trying to. This is your personality, blah, 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 all of this stuff. So I was like, yeah. So I went into it, and I was like, listen, I just got back. I'm not really trying to get into a relationship or nothing like that. So if it comes off as me flirting, I ain't really mean for it,
But you were flirting.
Hey, you on my side.
Weren't you flirting? It's okay.
You was flirting when you
Rubbing feet.
Like you was
Rubbing
like,
feet.
But my boy said you can't get into a relationship right now. He said don't do anything. So I was like,
Your boy's supposed to be like, go ahead.
She might be
But it's all good. We forgive you.
Right.
I forgive you.
It works out good, y'all married.
There you go.
It was all great.
So so I ended up talking to her a little bit more, and she messages again, and she's like, "Are you flirting with me?" And so I was like, "Yeah, this is the third time." And now I'm about to turn into Peter, because if I say no this time, But anyway, so I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, right. So I was like, okay. So I turned to my boy, and he was like, well, let's go back to the room and we can talk while we're walking. So I'm going back to the room, and he was just like, well, are you? I was like, yeah. And he was like, well, do you like me, bro? And I was like, I mean, I do. He was like, then what you talking about? I was like, oh no, I'm not supposed to be in a relationship with you. He was like, but you already started. So I was like, all right.
That's Chris said, I can't be in a relationship right now, so.
It took 3 times to
Fellas, we missed so many. So many signals. Like,
Just be honest.
she done hit the game winner in your face 3 times
Already.
already.
Like, hey.
So look,
Rubbing my
so
feet.
we get back to the room, and so then I to our little apartment room or whatever. So then I log back on, and I was like, hey, yes, I was flirting with you, right? Thinking like, oh man, I put myself out there. Literally, the next message was like, cool, because I was flirting with you too. I was like, bruh, what you asking me for? You
other people in the college ministry. I didn't really know anyone that well. And so for me, I was just a little timid in my relationship with the Lord. I was like, I don't really know how to do fun and do Christianity. Like, it was just like,
I really want to dive into that.
you know what I mean?
No.
And so I was like, you know, if truth be told, he's like, well, what do you do for fun? Well, how do you hang out? And I was like, if I'm honest, like I'm saved and stuff like that, but I just be in my apartment with my roommates and we'll chill. But I don't have anybody, like I don't have any community around me. I don't do anything fun. He was like, you know what? I'm gonna get you some community. Like I want you to have fun.
Well, where did that come from though, Tad? Like, what made you feel like you didn't know how to have fun being saved? Like what?
We keeping all of that. All of that.
I heard somebody,
You just fired.
It's a family podcast. And we got family.
Four
in the
children.
podcast.
Somebody's always farting. It's a
We
thing.
got a house full of kids in the
Yes,
basement. It's
it's
okay. We told
If
y'all.
they heard it, it's great.
That's
Y'all
why
in the
I
house
was
with
bust
us.
out laughing.
Y'all in the crib with us.
I think for me, I went from partying, parties, clubbing, like all that stuff, and staying out late and drinking to have fun and all that stuff to like nothing. And so there was no in between. I was like, oh, this is great. Like I want to submit my life to the Lord. I want to live for Him. I want to sing for Him. That was one of the things that got me fully was like I wanted to submit my gift to the Lord, singing, worship, all of that, right? But I didn't know that there was anything in between. Like I just thought it was all right. Well, you have fun singing and worshiping me, but outside of that,
That's it.
that's it.
Can I guess both of y'all, because I love this conversation. Can both of y'all speak to the viewer or the listener that does what you did? Like, how did you come out of that of almost differentiating or separating fun and God? Like, there are a lot of people that view Christianity as a giant to-do list.
A lot of people teach it wrong. Like I know that's what it was for me. Like I was
Facts.
just taught wrong. It was like a very black and white thing, and it was given to you like, you know, how you can't possibly do that and be saved, or it's not a way to go about this and be saved. Like it was just like absolutely not.
Christianity was like you could see it from a picture perspective. They made Christianity look like a black and white movie, and the world looks like it's an HD Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Hype Williams movie. That's what the world. Stay away from the world. But the world look like Matrix. Y'all look like you know what I mean? Like this. But like, so what was I guess the switch? Because it sounded like it hit for you like 2008. Because I think every Christian that I've spoken to, we've all went down this rabbit hole of like you said, running away from God. I went through atheists. I was Scientologist. I was Muslim. I looked into 5%ers. I looked into all of that stuff, going down a rabbit hole, only to find that Christ was my foundation. Like I ended up going back to the seeds that was planted in me earlier in my childhood. But like, what was that for you? What did that look like for you coming back to it? Both of y'all.
I think for me, it was recognizing that the Lord loves me for who I am. Like He created me this way. Like He loves my personality. He loves my sense of humor. He loves for me to have fun. And it isn't just about using my gifts to bring Him glory. Like He wants all of me. And all of me is enough. Like I don't have to put aside certain things. I don't have to put aside myself. Like I can bring all of me to Him. He can use all of that. And I can be great in the process because He's great. That's what that was.
And again, we came from two different backgrounds.
Yeah.
You know, like she grew up in a background where like her father was the pastor, and I didn't grow up with that. I grew up in a background where my family went to church a lot.
Yeah.
And so I can go from both sides. You know, I tell people all the time I grew up in two different churches at the exact same time. People try to figure out like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, I was going to an Episcopal church at the same time as I was going to like a spiritual church. So I was getting the best of both in many ways. If that's how you want to define it. And then I had parents on both sides that was also serving in churches. So I had, my father who was a lay minister and doing things in the church there, and also my grandmother who was like an active participant in the church doing a lot.
Is at 93.
Right. And then I go to, my mom's side where my mom was a part of the choir and trustee board and all of these things, as well as my grandmother that was being a part of it. So like I just had it on every side.
Yeah.
And I mean I can go back even further than that.
But when did it become yours though? Like that's when did it become like real for you? Because I know a lot of us grew up in churches,
Yeah.
but it's like man, I'm going ahead because everybody waking up every Sunday and we going. You know what I mean? Everybody going to church. When did it become
I
real?
would say like my real walk, I would say happened during in 2007. And that was pretty much when I was actively involved in the campus ministry, but also when I got kicked out. When I got kicked out of school, it was heartbreaking, not because of the relationship part, but it was like, man, this is the first time where I felt like I had like true friendships. It was the first time where I felt like I'm around people that are like me. So then I was like, man, I'm getting kicked out of this. I was like, what is God doing? But I went to a church down in Florida, and from the day I stepped foot into the church, I felt like God was like, I got you, come here, type of thing. So one of the things that I hid away from, so all my family knew that I was a keyboard player. I didn't allow other people to find that out. I quit playing the piano probably my sophomore year of high school, and I pretty much stopped letting everyone else know that I could play the piano. So when I first got to college, they needed a keyboard player, and I was like, oh well, it ain't gonna be me. So they never knew, and it would just so happen that I couldn't stop playing the keyboard. I just didn't do it publicly for people. And so I was privately playing one time, and one of the guys who was in our campus ministry walked past and was like, bro!
Yeah.
Right. And so I was like, oh, no. Well, I only played one time in campus ministry that year that I was there.
Yeah.
I went down to Florida, and the first day that I was in the church that I went to, the pastor literally came from the pulpit. They had no music. She came from the pulpit, and she looked at me, and she was like, get on over there, son, and play What's Yours. That's legitimately what she did. And I was like, what? And it was like, yep, get on over there. It's out of tune, but it's yours. And so I was playing. I played a couple songs and whatnot. And after that, she legitimately goes, every Sunday you come in, that's your spot.
All right.
And this is where you're going to play, and you're going to minister. And whatever you sing, whatever you play, that's what we're going to do. And during that time, like I used to literally go to, because I had nothing of my own personally in my house to play, I would go to the music store every day for like 3 hours and just sit and worship in the music store, right? And just play.
We're back.
And we back. Slight little whatever, but we about to alley-oop it back. So you was telling us about cutting out time at guitar center for your worship.
Yeah, man. And spending that time while I was there, you're talking about hours a day, every single day of the week outside of Sunday. But being able to go there, and one of the best things about it was, part of it was because I didn't have like my community that I had just like really started growing with there. So that was a struggle. And then also like all of my siblings were younger than me. So my siblings that are younger were all 4 years or more younger than me. So like the interaction that I have, at that point I'm like 18, 19 years old, talking to a 14, 15-year-old. They was out there like, nah, bro.
I'm out here.
That's just enough gap for you guys to just like completely just
Right.
like not get each other.
Excuse you though, but not all of your siblings, because I'm older than you.
All the ones that was there.
The male siblings.
I did forget like you got shit right here. It's all good.
The male siblings are younger.
But and so, but while I was there, man, like it really, like I had opportunities to be able to teach. I had opportunities to be able to go different places. I had like, it was a lot of opportunities that I had. The same things that I was doing in campus ministry up in Virginia, I was having the opportunity to do down there, but I was by myself.
Yeah.
And sometimes we talk about like the fun piece. Like it's not fun alone.
That part, yo.
And so it felt like, it's like those things when you think about, a lot of people think about it, where it's like that one person that's off on the island by themselves and they're walking from place to place. And it's just like, oh yeah.
See what you did there?
You gotta remember that. But like, it's that idea of like you feeling like you're there by yourself and you're just walking place to place like a nomad type of thing, and that's not fun. And eventually if you feel like that, eventually this fun race that we're on, like it dries up and it's kind of like, I'm done.
Sometimes he'll take you through that period of isolation just for you to develop develop.
And I
what
needed
is that,
Yeah.
I needed it tremendously because part of it was, like just dealing with different like family hurt, and then a lot of it was just my own personal. Like the one thing I said was like about friendship. That was a piece of mine that I did not realize until even more recently. That like friendship was a big part of like my hurt, and pain that I had struggled with, just because I felt like I was always different. I was always like this little Christian kid, and so when I got around certain people and they were talking other things, I either felt like I had to like kind of sway and fit in there,
Yeah.
whatever. So like I learned how to cuss, not because I wanted to, but because everybody else was doing it. I went to the campus ministry, and the first day I was there, the dude was like, "Hey bro, we don't talk like that around here." And I was like, okay, cool. And then I stopped cussing immediately. So it wasn't like it was something that I wanted to do. It was just legitimate. I thought I had to do it to fit in.
Yeah.
I don't have to do it here. Oh, well, then cool. So things like that has been very, very instrumental as far as like that. And then when I got back, from Florida, when I came back up to college and I was able to connect more with like my friends and things like that, they also challenged me differently. So then it was like some of them knew that was like, oh, like you're a worship leader down there. Now when you come up here, don't be trying to sit on the sideline. Like we know who you are now.
Yeah.
So now, because they know my purpose and my call and things like that, they're like, oh yeah, no, bro, you can't just sit out here. No, get up here and teach something. Or get up here. Hey, so Chris and I, like Pastor Chris now, but back then he wasn't. So we would be sitting in a house like this, interacting together, having fun, and there's a bunch of people. It could be 30 people in here, right? And then we'd sit down and we'd be eating, and he'd be like, bro, what you think about doing like a quick Bible study right now? And I'd be like, oh, that'd be dope. And he was like, you got your tools? And I was like, oh yeah. And I would go out to my car, and in my trunk was my keyboard, my amp, my stand, everything, and I'd pull a joint out. We would do worship for like 30 minutes, then he'd do a quick Bible study for like 30 minutes. We'd do an hour Bible study right there on the spot, unplanned.
Hey man, shout out to Chris, man. Pastor Chris, man. Shout out to Pastor Chris.
But that's stuff that we would do, and so for me, those made like the moments fun, unexpected. But then we would go to the movies, and we would go to the first movie he took me to go see was Gridiron Gang. I was in that joint crying, and when I realized that I could cry in front of other men,
Nobody know about your Gridiron Gang is a sleeper, bro. Y'all talking about Remember the Titans. Gridiron Gang is like right there,
like,
man.
that's me.
That was a good movie.
Yeah, bro, I love that joint,
And
man.
so, I mean, things like that was stuff that we learned, and part of that is because, like, those that were before Chris and, another guy named Marcus, like, they were partiers that came over to being saved, and it was like, all right, now how do I do this thing, but also make it enjoyable for us? Like, we shouldn't have to be, like, stuck in our room. Like, we can play video games, like, we can go out and, do stuff.
Reading the word helped me to understand what I could and couldn't do.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus enjoyed himself. Like, he had wine. He partied.
The first
like,
miracle was the
yeah,
wine.
the
first miracle was
relaxed,
like
he really enjoyed himself. So,
Thank you, Jesus.
like, yeah, man, like the word. Like, I encourage you all, like everybody out there, if you getting on this walk, like read it for yourself, so that way you can see what's really going on, as opposed to just listening to what others have to say. Because it helped you out a great deal. It's helped me out a lot.
And knowing it for yourself, man. Because I wanted to chime. You said something like a couple minutes ago where it was just like, yo, they don't want you to, like, God don't pick you up and then like, poof, the stuff that you like just disappears.
Oh, yeah.
Like, no, I put that stuff in you. I think a lot of times, man, which is like even saying, like, pick the word up for yourself. That scripture, when you come to Christ, you're a new creature. I think a lot of people misconstrue that so much, almost to the point where it's just like, well, hey, man, I'm not supposed to be funny and goofy when I'm around people no more. I'm not supposed to be, every time I talk to somebody, man, yo, you want something to drink? No, man, I drink from the living well of the Lord. Like yo, you ain't gotta like Christianize it out all the time. You living it in the way you walk. Like God will he repurposes the things that he put in. They're in you for a reason, man. So like that's beautiful.
Like we just gotta. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say going with that, right? So the scripture when it talks about Jesus goes to Peter and Andrew and the crew, and he's like, "Hey, come with me, come follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men," right?
Yeah.
But they were already fishermen, right? Yeah. So like this is what they naturally did, and he was like, "All right, now I'm gonna repurpose the very thing that you're already good at, and I'm use it for my good. So now let's go get some guys." Type of
Like
thing.
So it's like I think what we do as humans, we just pervert everything that God
Absolutely.
created.
Yeah.
Like God created, everything that God created was definitely for our good. We just get our hands on it, pervert it, and then it becomes this elaborate thing of just like, nah, that's not how you should go about it. It's cool to have that in you to want to enjoy it, but how you guys go about it is just not of me, not me, but of Him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that's what happens a lot of times. You just pervert it. Like,
The sad thing is, you don't even recognize you perverting it until you in the word and you be like, oh, that ain't what that said.
That's not what I said.
That's not what that said.
Yeah.
Like, this is why it's important. Like, and this is not to knock church. Obviously, we got pastors sitting right here. So this is not to knock Sunday. I'm not knocking Sundays when I say this, but I'm saying Sunday, trying to figure out how to thank you, Holy Spirit. You shouldn't put Sunday on a pedestal. Like, it should not be the only day you're in the presence of God or reading your word or digesting your word. And it's sad. We'll take the message from Sunday as law. And sometimes it is. But sometimes you miss a gem in there. Like the pastors, a lot of pastors and speakers, they'll pull out like the main 3 nuggets. Because humans, we got the attention span for 3 nuggets. You know what I mean? So they'll pull out the main 3 nuggets, but it's other stuff in there, man. And if you take the time your Sunday message could last you until next Sunday if you really go in there and dive and dissect. Let me get the origin behind this story. Let me find out about the person that they was preaching about. Let me find out what happened to them after this. So on and so forth. There's so many nuggets, man. You just got to make time to know Him for yourself. Otherwise, you'll grow up believing money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
But that's what some pastors like misquote. That's not even what it says. That's not what it's speaking of. You're a new creature. Yeah, but like you just said, he'll repurpose it. Like you're no longer a fisherman of fish with a net. We don't take out this biblical net and we don't go fish for men. Spend time knowing them and learning them for yourself, man. Otherwise, it'll lead you off course and leave you feeling like there's a separation between fun and
like, yo,
God.
You know what jumped out at me the other day? I was doing some reading, and people always say how important it is to pray before you make a decision. Like, always consult with Him before you ever make a major decision.
Yeah.
So I'm reading about Jesus, and when this is right before He picked the 12 disciples, He had a large crowd with Him. But prior to that, He went and prayed to God all night. Now, it doesn't say what that prayer was about, but this is me just looking at it, just like maybe He was asking for guidance. Like, who out of this large crowd can be the 12 that can really rock and roll with me?
Yeah.
Because this is going to be a heck of a journey. Right? This is going to be a heck of a journey. Like, it's just like, that goal that you get out of there, those things that you can learn to apply to your life, like right now. Like, they are just so beneficial. Right. So beneficial. Like, you should just, man, like, pick that word up, man.
For yourself.
Pick it up, man.
If all you're getting is a regurgitated word, man, you missing like the nutrients of it, man. Like it's, oh man, like I love that too, man. We spoke on, you pulled something out from one of the scriptures in Revelations earlier this week, E. And I was just like, I've never really paid attention to that. Because most people would be like, you got to get to a quiet place and God will talk to you in a whisper.
Yeah.
And he poured out like that. No, there's parts in the Bible where God actually talks in a loud thunder. He talks in a roar. He'll talk. Yeah. All times, it's not whispers all the time. Sometimes it's smack dab in your face. Like it is. Sometimes it's smack in your face.
He was on the island. That's when John was on the island of Patmos. That's when he received the revelation for the book of Revelations. Like, and he just was like a loud trumpet. It was like, man, he spoke to me loud. He got my attention. When I'm about to say this, you need to write this down verbatim.
Write this down.
Yeah, you need to write this down verbatim. And
it's
just little things like that you gather from actually delving into it yourself, and you kind of bust a lot of myths in the process, or understand that some things are twofold. Like, it's not just he whisper all the time. Sometimes it's loud, and just across the board with things. But
can we get some of the ladies? I want some of the ladies' takes, man. Like I want some of the ladies' takes on, because I was waiting for you to go down that rabbit hole, but you hit the spin from it. Like the drinking, the partying.
Yeah.
it was fun because Jazz,
Sin is
my wife is allowed to. She'll diddy bop over that, but like
Sin is fun.
like
Yeah, I think. Yeah, like I mean, if it wasn't fun, we wouldn't do it, right? I think for me it was like the feeling of a void. So for me, it was always growing up in religious family, faith, all that stuff. Like it was very much so. This is the front we put on in front of people. This is what we put forth in front of people. We are the first family, therefore, ... Don't go out here and embarrass. Like all of that, right?
Cosby syndrome.
It very much so, very close to that. And so I equated a lot of that to my walk with the Lord, and which is why I didn't have much of a community. I thought it was like zero or everything. Like I didn't know that there was an in between, because it was like, this is what I put on in front of people so that they don't get to know the real me. But when in all actuality, God loves the real you, and He'll put people around you that love the real you. Like you don't have to fake it. Like it doesn't have to be inauthentic. And I think that's what I strive to be, just authentic to who I am. I am country. I'm a little bit ghetto. Just like I just have certain things that just are weird. Listen, I just have these things, and I'm loud. And all of that is good stuff about me. And I'm not going to put on for anybody. Like, I think that's one thing that I'm just very much so. And even just struggles within our relationship, putting ministry, like that we are actively involved in, like not wanting it not to be authentic to us and what we bring and who we are and what we desire. But like, the truth of the matter is, sin was fun. It just wasn't fulfilling. Like it didn't, what I thought it was going to be, isn't what it was. I would go out here, put on a front, oh, I'm having a great time, we're doing this thing, oh yeah, dances, parties, all that stuff. And then it's over and I'm by myself, or we're waking up hungover, or I'm, calling exes drunk because I'm, just trying to cover up feelings and, like just all of this extra stuff. I'm just like, this is just not the life. We've all done it, we know we do.
What's it?
What y'all got?
I'm about to say, don't leave on this island alone.
So, for me, I didn't grow up going to church. I went to church a couple times, but I grew up in a household where God was not on a pedestal. My family were into divination and tarot cards, and horoscopes, and going to see spiritual people do healing, all types of stuff. So I grew up with this new age type of Christian spirituality, crystals, sage, and stuff like that. So that's this type of stuff that I did, and I was the party, drink all the time until I decided that lifestyle was no longer for me, and I committed myself to the Lord and started going to church. And then I met Him during the time frame I was on that self-love journey, like it's all about me and all this and that. And so then I decided to give my life to Christ fully, and then that's how this whole new thing came about. And so I definitely can relate to that part. But I did go through a period of isolation season where it was strictly me and God and my Bible, because I had to go through the process of purification and sanctification and all this stuff. And so it was definitely an experience, but I went through a lot. I went through spiritual attacks and all types of stuff going through that phase.
Getting the strongholds broken, man.
Yeah, so it was definitely a journey to get through to where we're at today. So let's see.
Come on, babe. Let's go.
You know it's about to get rich. Yeah, take a deep breath. So which one we going with today?
Come on,
My
man.
journey was
Where the bodies
much
buried.
like
Let's go.
Yeah.
much like my brother.
Not
We had a grandmother and a father and an aunt that they were in an Episcopal church. So when I went, I think every other weekend I was there. So we were going to the Episcopal church. And when I was home, my mother was trustee and my grandmother was one of the mothers of the church at a Baptist church. It was a small church. And like I was telling you earlier, we had the youth choir, and me and my cousin were up there singing every Sunday at that church. And so it was confusing for me. So I'm like, okay, well, how is this supposed to go? Because this church, they over there, and it's really like, you sitting there, you on your best behavior, and you sitting there like, okay, this is quiet. And then in my church, the pastor, he's running up and down the aisle, and he's shouting and dancing, and so it was confusing. But yeah, I think I started my journey at about whatever the time was when you were in Miami. That's when I was kind of like, okay, this that I'm doing, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I feel like I want to be closer to God, and I want Him to be a part of my life. I want to change some things around. So that's when it started, and then it got a little bumpy. And then I think probably a few years later, that's when I was like, no, I really want to dive into this. I want to see what this is about. And it kind of went from there. And I think that was like around the time that I might have just had Javar. And I was going through this, you know, like you said, the whole healing thing and the spiritual thing. Like, okay, what do I want to do? I have a 1-year-old or a newborn baby, however old he was at the
You was
time.
healing, babe?
I was healing. I definitely had to heal. I was coming
Yeah,
out of
yeah.
What you doing? What you healing?
I was coming out of a marriage. I had a sick baby.
Oh, you
and I
was
just
just healing. I'm
Yeah,
thinking
like
you talking
healing.
about like how Jazz was saying it. Like,
Yeah, I was so many out here.
Oh, my
I was like,
whole-
no, you was doing. You was hip.
just healing myself, and then this, like, I need to know, you know, what I need to do. I need to figure out how to go from here. So, and I want to be able to teach my son the right thing to do. And I think that around that time when we started talking, that's why I was like, let's go to church. Let's go to church every Sunday. Let's see what this is about. So I was dragging him into the church, and he was like, I don't like this whole thing, but
Yeah, I was.
so yeah, that's what my journey
Yeah, that's very true. Like when we got together, I was very much because I guess you can say I just was seeing things in the church that I just didn't agree with. I didn't agree with the, you know, text your tithe in to this number. I didn't agree with
ATM
that.
machine
And to the
and the
ATM
lottery.
machine and the lot. And I get the purpose of all that because you know church is still a business. Like it still takes a certain amount of resources to maintain it.
Yeah.
But I didn't like the pastor saying stuff like, all right, y'all, this 9 a.m. service. Next is 11 a.m. service. We raised 1 point something million this service. Make sure y'all don't say anybody coming to next service because they won't
They
get
won't
money.
contribute to that, yeah.
They won't contribute. So it's just like, yeah, I was caught all up in that. But I will say that when I finally decided to give my life to Christ, I was in a city truck in Eldersburg, Maryland, and yeah, I just broke down crying. Like, yeah, I was just, yeah, it was just surreal for me. Like, I really felt it. Everything that I was dealing with, going through at the time, whether it might have been with marijuana, pornography, breaking the law, whatever. Like, I was a very different individual than what you see here today. That's not to say that I'm perfect, but yeah, like that's where it really started for me. And that's not to say that I was like it was on like a up trajectory like the whole time. It was valleys and it was peaks. It was valleys and it was peaks. But yeah, man, I'm thankful.
And crazy thing was that same church that we started going to, we noticed that it was some things that we didn't like. We actually were in that church, like probably middle school.
Oh yeah,
And my family sat right in back of his family at church that day, and I'll never forget it. I don't know why. Like I remember the order they were sitting in, and I remember tapping my cousin like, "That's Evan right there. That's Evan." I told her I was like, "Hi, Evan."
Every time she see the kids, she know it, yo.
Hey, God don't make no mistakes.
Right,
He don't make no
Right.
mistake,
So,
yo.
Yeah, I
We
just
was in that
remember like.
math class together too.
Yeah, we did a lot. Like we found out that a lot of places where he was too. So it was just like, wait, you were there for that? You remember when that happened? He was like, yeah, I was there. And I was like, I remember you being there for that. He was like, for real, I don't remember you being there. So we have a lot of moments like that. But I just really remember like, hey, that's Evan. And he turned around and was like, hi. I was like, hi. So his mom turned around. She was like, hi. His dad turned around. I was like, hi.
I think I might have gave it a Javar wave.
Yeah,
That was just like,
the Jamal Jermaine way. Hi.
Yo. Oh, yo. I'm not even gonna say it, yo. I'm not even gonna put him on blast, yo.
You came back and approached me without and it wasn't a Jamal Jermaine way.
Yo.
So it's okay.
Our sons they saw each other for the first time at a men's conference like a month ago. And they did like a Spider-Man meme to each other. Like, yo, hey, Evan. Like, yo, man, yo, this is my best friend, Evan. This is son, Javar. Jermaine, say hi to Javar. And they both like, all right. And they both, but
yo, crazy, yo.
Yeah,
we
they're the same age, so it's hilarious. Just like
the social climate, yo, for like children in this generation is just so different, man. Like that social anxiety and just the confidence, that the insecurities just seem to be at an all time high. We was talking about that on cam before we came back. Like this culture, the way that the world just was hit with a pandemic that was unforeseeable, the mental health aspect of everything now, man. Like, our children need us to be who God intended us to be. Now, I think more than ever. More than ever. They need these healthy representations of what the walk with God looks like. Because, like you said, sin is fun. It don't feel bad saying it, but like, it's true. The sin is fun comment, that's going to stick with me so much. It was fun, but it was not fulfilling. The problem is, until you come into your walk with God, you don't even know what being filled feels like, so you don't know what you're missing.
You don't know what you're missing.
You really don't know what you're missing. I was like, yo, it's weird now, because thinking back to when I first found one of my old home churches, I purposely sat in the second from the back row, so I didn't feel guilty about sitting in the back row at church. I sat in the second from the back row, and I sat right by the door in the back. I remember, like, the second from the back row, right by the door by the bathroom that was in the back. But so I would get up around the same time, right before they do the texture tithe and all. I would get up, act like I'm going to the bathroom, and dip out. I would get my word, get my little worship in, and dip up out. When I really did come into knowing God for myself, I don't even know when it changed. You almost can't get me out of the church now. At the end of service, I almost feel tugged to speak to everybody. I love people. Like, I do. I do. I love everybody. Like, hey, man, how you been? Ain't playing for this week. It's a freedom that comes with, and it's weird, but that's the way God works. The two words are almost polar opposites. By surrendering to Him, I feel the most free I've ever felt in my life. No insecurities whatsoever. And like I said, this generation of our kids need that so much, man. Like, I did want to dive into y'all as far as like juggling ministry and 4 kids and a marriage. Give me tips.
I'm learning.
We're not perfect. We are not perfect.
Yeah, give me tips.
Yeah.
Ministry, 4 kids, and a marriage.
Yep.
This is in real time right here.
Yeah.
Real time.
Well, no, I mean this is conversations that we have often,
All the time, yeah.
and with ourselves, but with others as well. Not wanting others to make mistakes that we've done, or me particularly, because I am 110% at whatever it is that I'm doing.
Nice.
So if I am doing ministry stuff, I'm 110. If we're gonna do family stuff, I'm 110. If we doing vacation stuff, I'm 110.
Right.
Don't give me we on vacation and we taking a day to rest. Okay,
Oh.
that's not.
He wanna have a long clock. He's setting a long clock. Hey, man, it's 6 in the morning.
Let's go.
Hey, man, this is $275 a night.
It's your life.
Like,
You had to talk him into a day of rest for the day.
Sabbath, bro. The Sabbath, man.
So speaking of that, man,
Right.
so so this will give you a prime example of like kind of how things are with me, right? I was talking with a pastor one time, and this was like right after COVID. So this is in 2021. I was actually setting up their video stuff and things like that, helping them. And the pastor is a really, really good friend of me and Tabs. And so he was just like, out of nowhere, he was like, Nate, when last time you had a Sabbath day? Because I was there helping him on the day that would have been, quote, my Sabbath day. And so I was like, Sabbath? And he was like, that's interesting. He was like, let me explain something to you. It's mandated by God in the very first, like, beginning parts of the Bible,
Literally.
that a Sabbath is a must. And he was like, and the way he explained it, he was like, I'm going to let you know something. You owe God some days of rest. And you owe God some days of just spending quality time with Him. And if you don't give it back, He going to take it one way or another. And I was like, oh, no, I'm good. I'm straight. Bruh, it was 2021. I was on stage one day, and we were like, I was feeling a little under the weather, so I took like some medicine. I had taken like 1,600 milligrams of like Tylenol type stuff.
We
And
didn't
then
know about the
and then I
Tylenol.
took like
The extra strength only 500, bro.
and then I took like it was like that, and then I took an Alka-Seltzer Plus because that's like cold medicine. So I
You're
did
old
that.
man, you're old
So
man.
I did that. That was at like noon. And then they were like, oh, we got church service that we're going to do because it was snowing, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, all right, to make it through, I'm going to jack up on it all again because I'm not going to have a chance to do it. So like 4 hours later, I took all of it again. So I'm on stage and we're like worshiping and stuff like that. And I'm playing the keys and singing, we're having fun. And worship, I was sweating. And I don't really sweat. But I mean, I was sweating like an MMA fighter on stage. And so I'm playing. And then all of a sudden, like, we had died down and we were about to transition to the sermon. And everything in my head felt like it was moving like this. But like, time was still real, but I mean, like, everything,
You ain't
like,
slow motion.
I was like, why is everybody starting to move different? Like, and so I was like playing, but like my hand was doing something weird. And so the drummer, he was looking at me, he was like, you good? And I was like, yeah. And then the more and more I kept going, I was like, oh, I don't think I'm good. Like, something not right.
wasn't good.
And so I was like, okay. And so my wife, she sees it. So she has two buddies of mine that come and grab me off the stage. Had another guy like hop on the stage and start playing the keys for me and everything. So I'm walking behind the stage and I'm like boiling hot. And so like they're pouring water on me, but it's snowing outside. So it's like they're trying to open up the cold air for me, but at the same time not freeze me out at the same time. All this stuff, right? So I'm finding all this out. We get to the hospital afterwards because they were like, everybody was like, oh, you gotta go to the hospital, go to the emergency room, blah, blah, blah. I ended up finding out, not only did I have COVID, but I had pneumonia on both sides of my lungs. So they were like, the doctor was like, you can't sing and you need to rest, right? That's what he said, right? That's exactly what he said. I had to sit down from the last Friday of January of that year to the last Sunday of February. Before I could actually do stuff again because I was supposed to be like, one, I had COVID, so of course you gotta be out for that. And then also because of the pneumonia stuff, I couldn't breathe. So I was on like asthma pumps and all types of stuff like that. And so I was like, okay, cool. But when we talk about like, oh yeah, you need to take a Sabbath, yeah, he got a way of like taking it from me, right? And so that's one thing. But along with that, that's something that we've like oftentimes like not necessarily gotten arguments because we don't really argue.
It's the point of tension in our relationship because I grew up in a family that did a lot of ministry. We were there all the time at church and stuff like that. And I remember as a kid just like being dreading, like, oh my God, we're going to church again. Which my parents were great. There's lots of grace for them. They did the best that they could with what they had. So I don't want it to sound like I'm bashing my parents. I didn't really understand that until I became a parent. I was like, oh my God,
there's no manual. There's no
manual. Like you just do the best you can, and then you try to make it up along the way. You're like, actually, this kind of works. All right, let's go. You know, like, but so with all of the ministry stuff, it was just like a lot. Like, and so in my, and you know how you make these like self-declarations. Well, I'm never gonna do that, right? Well, I had already said I wasn't gonna ever become a pastor's wife. That was one thing. Which my husband's a pastor, so. And you know, it's fine. The Lord does what he will make you eat the words. Yes. But also, like I said, like I don't want to be the type of people that are like putting ministry above family. Like it needs to be family first. I never want my children to be in a space where they can't feel like they're themselves or whatever. And so for us, it's a point of tension because he loves ministry. I love ministry too, but I'm very much so. You know, we have to. Yes, we have to incorporate rest actively because we minister at such a high capacity. Like we play dominant roles in our church. I'm the worship director. He's the worship pastor. And so we do a lot of ministry all the time. And I love it. Like it's what I'm passionate about. I went to grad school for we love it. Like, and so we've fully submitted ourselves to God. We feel like this is a call. This is a mantle on our lives. But there's also regulating that we have to constantly do. And so for him, I have to and we complement each other well. So he will push me in certain areas. I'm like, I don't want to. But also, no, my husband can do it, I can do it, right? So there's a pushing that happens there, but then there's also hey, you're doing too much. Like let's kind of pull it back a little bit. And so we
slamming the brakes.
That's how it is. That's how it is. You have to. Otherwise you lose track and then you like, yo, did we overdo it? Me and my wife just went through this season last semester at the church where we felt it. Like, yo, we may have overdid it. I'm taking my kids to a small group on Thursday. I was in a freedom group on Monday. You were in a group on Tuesday. We was trying to help them with food pantry. And we was like in that season of like, yo, yes God, I want more God. Coming home and then diving in the book and trying to prayer force on Wednesday. We was in a prayer group on Wednesday. Like
Every day of the week.
it was a lot, man. And like I said, that's kind of where I'm asking for advice with that. Like, cause I do my prayer or my hope is to go into some type of ministry. I ain't sure pastor, but some type of ministry. How do you find that balance? Everybody say, you got to carve out time.
Yeah.
Or you gotta prioritize your list, man. Some of that stuff can come off. What if it's nothing can come off? Like, how do you make time when everything on your plate right now
Seems very, very
is
clear.
real?
I think you have to put it in, and I'll let you, because we have gotten into a rhythm now where it's a lot better. But that is our tension point in our relationship. I feel like every relationship kind of has those points where it's just like, this is the one thing that we talk about constantly, that we're constantly having to reevaluate. Okay, where are we, kind of thing. And so for us, I had to put in my, like, what do I want my children to get out of this season of life when they look back on it? Like, what are they going to be doing when they get older? We already see it on some of our children. Some of them are going to be pastors. We see definitely worship leaders on some of them as well. But we want to make sure that we are modeling a pattern of reverence to the Lord, but also a pattern of prioritizing family over ministry. It's God, us. We have to prioritize us a lot of times. Where y'all going? We have to prioritize us and then our children, right? And it's really, really hard because you're always like, oh my gosh, my children need me. They need me. But no, like, if they see us good, they gonna be good. They gonna be good. And so we've had to like actively force ourselves to, okay, now it's usually Mondays or Fridays is our Sabbath day, because we're both in some sort of we are both in full-time ministry. The point of tension in our relationship is time and finding balance and things like that. And me growing up as a PK and things like that, like I didn't want that same result from my children. I wanted to be able to be a good steward of them and there. So like when I was in undergrad and I was pregnant with our first child, we both felt the call that I was supposed to be at home. And that's not something you do after you go to college full-time 4 years and you're paying back student loans and you're probably a stay-at-home mother. So that was a whole thing for our extended families. For us, it was like, no, this is what God said, so we don't do it. And so with that, with me being the one at home and him being the guide in our family in a lot of senses, like we had to set priority for our children. Like what we want our children to see as people who are in active ministry. If we feel that they're called, they're going to do this one day, we want them to be able to do it well and be able to do it for a long time. So a lot of times if you see in ministry, you see pastors that have fallen or ministers that have fallen or people that are in active ministry that have fallen. A lot of that is because they haven't prioritized rest and making sure that they're being rejuvenated by the Lord and spending time with their family, right? And so we want to be able to make sure that we are able to do ministry for as long as the Lord requires, not because someone's sinned, not because someone's fallen do we step away, but because we've done exactly what the Lord wants to do. Now it's our time to sit. And so we have to make sure that we are incorporating rest so that we can do that well.
What are some things? The past couple days, we had a conversation a few days ago where we just kind of like breaking down just over the many things that we're trying to work on, things that God has spoken to us about, this podcast being one of them, clothing brand being another, stuff going on at work. I just had to like leave my personal phone on, like just turn it off, because if it's there, then the pull to like get on it and reach out and check on this and see how this is doing, see how that is doing. I just really had to dial it back. It helped out a great deal. I just really had to put it down. But that rest thing, my wife is huge on that. Because me, when I get involved in something, it's like you said, 110%. I'm flushing out every possible idea, anything I could possibly do with this, I'm doing it. And this is really not the healthiest place to be. And to be honest, like you can kind of like miss him when you get caught up in that. You're so caught up in doing. So that's another thing, real quick before we get on. But it's like, how do you know when you hear from them? Like how do you distinguish between you having a thought about something, your personal ambition versus him speaking to you like, hey, this is what I want you guys to do. You know, how do you differentiate the two?
Yeah, it's funny. Somebody just asked me this the other day,
Come on, Lord.
which is in there. I can answer it then. But no, I think some of it is, so we here we all pray and we all spend time with the Lord, right? And so in some semblance, we feel like we have an idea of something God has said to us. Right? And so that means that there is a clear understanding that we have of knowing God's voice to some degree. Right? Then we also understand and know that there are times where like the enemy will try to pervert. The gentleman I was speaking with, he started talking about like the scripture where like the devil started tempting Jesus with specific things that like Jesus had just but the way in which he did it, like just looking at it, a lot of what he was saying about the scriptures was all about like Jesus, like him being able to do stuff for himself. And what we understand about like our faith is that everything that we do is really not about us. It's about everybody else. So like God saves us not so that we can just enter into the kingdom, which is great, but it's more so that we can spread that thing so that so many others can do it. And so a lot of the things that we are looking at when it comes with us, man, we kind of pray and just figure out like, okay, God, like if this is what you want, and then I'm not afraid to pray to get the Gideon, I think it's Gideon, right? Prayer where it's just like, all right, make the ground dry and the fleece wet. And then, all right, now flip it. Now make the fleece dry and the ground wet. I
need to know for sure.
I am very, because I feel like it's not that like I'm doubting God or anything like that. Sometimes I need that sign that's like, hey, am I doing the right thing? And then there are some times where I know in my heart of heart, like you get that tension where it's like, God said, for an example, if God was like, all right, go and share something with Evan. And that shakiness start getting in there, and you'd be like, oh no, he don't really need it right now. And they'd be like, no, then that's what the Lord said. And so I think that's one of the things as well. It's like sometimes like that, it's not that it's going to embarrass you, but it puts you, when we're in faith, like it has that vulnerability where you are fully trusting on God. My scripture for this year that I've been leaning on is Genesis 22. And it's the part where Abraham and Isaac go up the mountaintop, and Abraham's about to sacrifice Isaac, right? And this whole process of them going up there, I laugh because like there's a moment right before where Abraham is talking to his servant, and he's like, hey, stay right here and we'll be right back. Now I'm trying to understand if in his mind he's like, God is saying, go sacrifice my son, but before I'm going to sacrifice, I tell this guy right here, we'll be back. So that means at some point he knew God was going to provide something. Right? So part of it is like us just being obedient to whatever it is, right? Well, they're going up the mountain. Next question is asked. Isaac is like, God, Abraham, Dad, I see this, but where's the sacrifice? Abraham was like, God will provide. So he already had it in his mind. It was like, I know God is not going to take away this promise. And if he does, he's obviously going to give something great. But I believe this is the promise that God has. And so I think some of it is just like our obedience and just walking in whatever it is that God has given. You know what I mean? You said we're about to close. So like one of it, for an example, is this podcast, right? So when we think about, one of the things you both have talked about was like, how do you have fun as being a Christian? Well, part of it is like being in a relationship, in a community. I can remember the conversations having with Evan and Keita prior to them meeting y'all, and they were looking for like, man, we just need somebody to do this thing with, right? It's like you need it, and you don't realize how much you need it until you got it, and then that joint is like, oh, everybody need this. Come on in, let's get this podcast going. Hey, check this out. First of all, y'all need to sit here because you know what I mean. Like it's one of those things. But this is a faith move that you guys are making. There is no financial gain or anything right now for you guys in doing this. The only gain you have is that God is going to continue to bless you and your families as a result of what you're doing. And also that hopefully he will also bless the families of those that's listening, right? So every person that you invite on is a strategically planned out moment where you're planning this out, not for yourselves. It's great to have conversation, but it's simply because the viewer, somebody needs to hear it, right? And that thing, but that was like just a random whim dream that you guys had that was just like, we just gonna go with it. You know what I mean? And through technical stuff, it's always technical things, and it's always things that the devil tries to do, to distract and all those things. And we know that. And so it's like one of those things where you're like, okay, this gives me that confidence of knowing, like, okay, not only are we on the right path, but we're doing something that's so impactful that the devil wants to stop it.
Yep.
And at that point, that's when it's like, oh,
we're
we're
gonna
going
Go back in.
If the worst he can do is cut the camera off, shoot.
Twice.
Right.
It's good.
Voice memo this showing up until weekend.
Audio.
Yeah, we got this.
And so, but I mean, this is like a prime example of that, like being able to, have this opportunity to create that space for somebody else to be blessed as a result of like, for you guys, you're like, man, we've been saved and we are saved and we ain't been walking this joint for like 10 years or nothing like that. But there's something that you've attained from your walk with God that's like, I gotta share it with everybody I know. Because if I do not share this, I feel like it is life or death between this person walking with the Lord and this person turning away and doing whatever. And that's yeah.
And I also would say, even in the faith and trusting the Lord, there's also this piece of I have to one, I'm stepping out. I don't know if this is going to work out, but I'm stepping out, trusting that I'm hearing the Lord's voice, and that's what He honors. One, your obedience to Him. And so, in that, even if you are wrong, because I am leaning on the Lord alone and solely, there's no way that He's going to let me fall.
Right.
Irregardless. So in my wrongness, He will move me in the right direction. He will purposely shift and move things around so that I'm right back where I was supposed to be. And so that's what faith is. That is what hearing from the Lord is. It is God. I think that this is a lean that you have for me. I think I'm reading in the scripture. I feel that confirmation there. All right, I'm gonna just step out.
Yeah.
And and you doing that alone, He will respond to.
That's what I'm at with it. Like,
Yeah.
hearing things, and I'm just like, man,
Just
like,
trust Him.
that's
Yeah, even if you're wrong, He's gonna guide. He's gonna guide you because you're in His will, because you are desiring for Him and not for your own glory, not for you to be seen, not for you to be glorified, but for His name to be seen, for His name to be glorified. He's gonna guide you, and He's gonna create provision for it. He's gonna create purpose within you for it. He'll give you vision and direction and instruction along the way. But it's that walking out. God, I trust that you're gonna provide. You're gonna do it. All right, here I go. And even if it's a tentative one, He's like, He honors that obedience in us.
Obedience over sacrifice.
Yeah.
I just think that His thing is like the patience. Like He knows that God is with him. He knows that God is walking with him. He knows that God is talking to him and talking to us about different things that we want to do. And you know what I'm saying? Even having y'all here, like this was something that we talked about from the beginning when we first started the podcast. So like, to see that come to fruition today is amazing. But patience with Him, like I keep telling you, I just keep reminding in God's time, not your time, not my time, in God's time. Whatever it is that we're looking for, whatever this is that He's telling us that He's going to provide for us, it is in His time. He is ready for us to have it. Then baby, this hour is going to be.
He has shown us like so much. Yeah, I will. And when I say it's shown us, like when I had those, I don't put them in the category of dreams because I can tell the difference between the two. They feel totally different when I have them. Like I'm asleep, but they feel totally different than just like a dream versus a vision. Like, and we just had so many, and it's just like
Living in
a
a
big thing.
podcast.
And it's just like, but it's just like patience is my thing because I do get sometimes just, and there's a few scriptures that have been helping me with that. We're just talking about some of God's faithful ones, just the attitude that they had while they were waiting. Like they had a grateful attitude. They had a still worshiping, just constantly, just not having a complaining attitude. Yeah. Not just for lack of better, just that's the newness or the new mind or the new whatever that I'm trying to put on.
It's because you're picking the word over yourself and you see that is what yo man, you should never question God. You should never have emotion. You should never get upset. That's not it's you know what I mean? It's in it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's in it. You just don't stay in it. You don't stay in those spaces. You don't stay in it. It actually makes you run to Him more. You know what I'm saying? My falls or my slip-ups or my anger outbursts, all of this, you don't live in your anger anymore. Like I'll get upset. I then get upset at myself for getting upset, and then that makes me go repent and go back be with Him, or retreat to my own safe space and go be alone and work myself out of it now. It's a different space you in, man, once you really are picking up that word and applying it.
Yeah.
It has definitely helped me out a lot with my insecurities, like especially as of late. I'm gonna say within like the past month or so, like this particular scripture where it refers to just like God, when you are born of God, you have conquered. He has conquered all things. So by you being born of God, you have conquered all things as well. Anything that the world can throw at you, any depression, any insecurity, anything that you can struggle with in this world, He has already conquered it. And if you are born of Him, then you have conquered it too. So that attitude, I've been putting on that, and that has helped us out like a great deal. I've not been coming in here with attitudes. I've not been having this trust issues or insecurity issues or lack of confidence issues. Like, yeah, like it has definitely helped me out a great deal. Like, yeah.
That's
All
good.
right.
Oh,
So, with all that being said, we want to thank you guys for coming.
Our
With
pleasure.
us today. You definitely have to come back with updates, and hopefully the kids won't be down there farting this time.
They probably will.
I can tell you which one it was.
Right, I was like,
Don't
no,